Namaskar. I am Dr. Nalini Avinash Wagmare, working as an Associate Professor at Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapeeth, Pune. Today's our topic is what is the meaning of history and definitions of history. So in this lecture, we have to study what is the meaning of history, definitions of history, nature, scope, and importance of history. We study in the next lecture. So what is history? The origin of the word history can be traced back to the Greek word historia, meaning inquiry or research or knowledge obtained as a result of inquiry. Herodotus was called as the father of history. Then various historians given a different opinion about the history. Cross all history is contemporary history. Maitland said, what men have done and said, above all what they have thought, that is history. Rainier, history is the story of men living in the societies. Leakey said, history is the record and explanation of moral values. Then Edward Burke, he also said, history is a preceptor of prudence and lot of principles. Carley says, history is nothing but the biography of great men, and that is a record of human accomplishments, particularly of great souls. Then John Seeley has said, history is past politics and present politics is future history. Lord Acton, history is the unfolding story of human freedom. Then Sinbos, history is essentially a science or reasoning, since all historical knowledge is indirect. Then Herodotus, history means an inquiry into interesting and memorable past events. E.H. Carr, history is an unending dialogue between past and the present. Professor Navius, history is actually a bridge connecting the past with the present and pointing the road to the future. Toyevid, all history is nothing but rise and fall of human civilization. Then Karl Marx also stated, human history is nothing but class struggle. Herder, history is the chain of present. Aristotle, an account of unchanging past. Francis Bacon said history is a discipline which makes men wise. Leakey said history is the record and moral revolution. G.B. Bury, history is a science, no less and no more. So this type of what we say definitions given by every scholar, historian, philosopher, in their own view, they have defined the history. Even Ernest Bentham, history is a science that investigates and presents in the context of psychophysical causality the facts determined by space and time of the evolution of men in their individual as well as typical and collective activity as social beings. A.L. Croce, history is essentially the record of the life of men in societies in their geographical and their physical environment. So now we detailedly study what is the meaning of history and definitions in detail. Few historian scholars definition only taken here detail for discussion. The English word history is derived from their Greek noun historia, historia simply means inquiry or research. The term history has been taken from the German word Geschichte, means an intelligible and significant narration of past events. In fact, development of history started with the ancient Greek historians as the Herodotus and Thucydides. Then what is history is the study of human past through written documents, but it's often subjective. Many believe history is influenced by current conditions, making it not just facts but interpretations. Different thinkers see history as both a serious study and sometimes just a collection of stories. So, on this basis, few historians' definitions we have to mention or study in this lecture. John Jacobin Anderson said, history is a narration of events which have happened among mankind, including an account of the rise and fall of nations, as well as of the other great changes which have affected the political and social conditions of human race. Then V.C. Saylor and R.J. Etman mention, history is not what you thought, It is what you remember. All other history defeats itself. James Joyce, history Stephen said, is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake. Then Arnold Toynbee, history is not is nothing. For all intellectual life is action, like practical life, and if you don't use the stuff well, it might as well be dead. Let's see, a Beard also mentioned his opinion about history. If a science of history were achieved, it would, like the science of celestial mechanics, make possible the calculable prediction of the future in history. It would bring the totality of historical occurrences within a single field and reveal the unfolding future to its last end, including all the apparent choices made and to be made. It would be omniscience. The creator of it would possess the attributes ascribed by the theologian to God. The future once revealed, humanity would have nothing to do except to wait its due. Then Voltaire mentioned the first foundations of all history are the recitals of the father to the children, transmitted afterwards from one generation to another. At their origin, they are at the very most probable when they do not show common sense, and they lose one degree of probability in each generation. Then E.H. Carr history definition we see detailed in next slides also. Dialogue, history is a dialogue between the present and the past. He mentioned detail in his book What is History? Then Will Durant, history is a narrative of what civilized men have done or thought or done in the past time. Then Herodotus, popularly known as the father of history, wrote about the Greco-Persian Wars. This contains a mine of information, including those relating to the ancient Egyptians and Persians. Thucydides developed this subject on scientific lines. He wrote the Peloponnesian Wars on the basis of evidence and showed the relation between causes and effects or results. Then, how about the other Greek historical thinkers? Herodotus, the father of history, considered history as the record of results of inquiries to what men have done and achieved so that their memory was not perished from the world. Thucydides, the father of scientific history, viewed history as a story of things or events worth being remembered. According to him, only unique happenings shall constitute history. Even Aristotle defined history as account of the unchanging past. He considered history as unchanging because human nature is unchanging. Then Polybius, the greatest of the later historian, ancient Greece, also circled in this view. Thomas Carlyle, World History is a biography of great men. Rainier History is the memories of societies. Elton stated that history is concerned with all those human sayings, thoughts, deeds, and sufferings which occurred in the past and have left present deposit. And it deals with them from the point of view of happening, change, and particular. Lord Acton, history is unfolding story of human freedom. Then Rousey, history is essentially the record of life of men in societies in their geographical and their physical environments. Their social and cultural environments arise from the interaction of the one with the other, the society and its geographical conditions. Then Professor Carl G. Gustafsson mentioned that history is a mountain top of human knowledge from whence the doings of our own generation may be scanned and fitted into proper dimensions. History enables a person to see himself as a part of that living process of human growth which has emerged out of the past and will inexorably project itself out beyond our own lifetime. We are the product of the past, but not the complete product. Then Dionysius mentioned that essence of human experience is not history the story of the experience of human past. The Greek genius thought that a study of human experience will have universal value, validity, and utility. Also, lesson learned from the school of experience will serve as example to emulate and footsteps to follow by the contemporaries as well as the posterity. Pity to the past is not for its own sake, nor for the sake of the present. So secure and enrich that will create a better future. Sir Francis Bacon, history makes men wise. According to him, history is not a mere collection of facts, nor a catalogue or chronology of events, but a discipline which inculcates wisdom in its readers. Wisdom is not mental alertness, but wrong, useful, useless, practical, impractical, external, phenomenal. So, historical knowledge based on experience, refined by reflection, perfected by perspection, makes man wise. Wisdom for a man's self, says Bacon, is the wisdom of pride that will be sure to leave a house of summer before it falls. Crafty men condemn history, simple men admire it, wise men use it for the benefit of mankind. Words of wisdom indeed. In history, we conserve with the wise, as in action with fools. With paradoxical modification, we may say that the inquiry of historical truth, which is the love making or wooing of it, the knowledge of such truth, which is the praise of it, and the belief of this truth, which is the enjoying of it. The Dutch proverb succinctly summarizes the truth. A donkey does not twice hurt itself on the same stone. So, according to wise men, discipline which makes men wise. Then Carly's definition is very near to history. He says is that essence of innumerable biographies of great men. He considered history as nothing but the life story of great men. He is in fact the originator of great men theory of history. Carly considered mighty men as demigods with a clear perception of history. All historical events are the manifestation and realization thoughts of great men. Those who dare and do shape the destiny of the people and live long in name and fame. Great men play the leadership role in responding to the challenges of the time. In short, history of the world is the history of great men. However, Carly's definition narrows the scope of history and restricts the role of other forces and factors which shape history. And Seeley also mentioned that history is past politics and present politics is future history. He believed that the ancient history was of little value and attached more importance to teaching history was of little value and attached more importance to teaching and research of modern history. He considered history as a school of statesmanship. He held the views that practical politics was the proper domain and warp and hoof of history. Politics is the raw material out of which history womb of past carries the seed of the present politics, which sprouts into future history. The purpose of history is therefore to impart instruction in the art and craft of politics, which will guide rulers to govern the countries. Then J.P. Bury is mentioned that history is simply a science, no less and no more. When he delivered his Cambridge inaugural lecture in 1903, born and brought up in the age of science, he laid down certain principles and methods of history. Bury was furious about applying and attributing cause of every event of similar kind. He revolted against the method of the empirical sciences of nature. He proclaimed that historical thought was a new thing in the world, different from natural science, with a special character of its own. Bury thought that history offered to mankind a new view of the world and a new armory of intellectual weapons. He brought a new intellectual attribute towards history. He established the uniqueness of historical thought. He refused to subscribe to the view that history mere is reservoir of facts or storage of information. He viewed that history as an independent discipline to be scientifically studied for its own sake. History must be based on observation, explanation, and validation. Then Lord Acton mentioned history unfolds human freedom. History is the unfolding of human freedom. He attempted a secular definition of history. He thought that freedom and free will alone will bring out the full potential of mankind. Ability and creativity, intellect, and innovation flourish only in an atmosphere of unfettered freedom. Liberty and freedom, not the rise and fall of kings and kingdoms, shall therefore be the legitimate concern of history. The American colonies were inspired and united to achieve life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in 1776. The French people staged a revolution in 1789 to secure liberty, equality, and fraternity. Since then, liberty and freedom became beacon lights for those who were enslaved and exploited. According to Lord Acton, historical events take place when human freedom was suppressed, and they also take shape when free will is given free play. Then Benito Cruz, history is contemporary. He said that all history is contemporary history. The practical requirements which underline every historical judgment give to all history the character of contemporary history. Because, however remote in time events thus recounted may seem to be, the history in reality refers to present needs and the present situation wherein those events vibrate. What Cruz meant was that the history consists essentially in seeing the past through the eyes of the present and the light of its problems. Cruz's conviction was that the main work of the historian must not merely to record the events, but also to evaluate them. So E.H. Carr also mentioned that history is an unending dialogue between the present and the past. What is history? In his book, he mentioned it is a continuous process of interaction between historian and his facts, an unending dialogue between the present and the past. He contends that the facts of history are not pure, and as they are always reflected through the mental prisma of the recorder. Hence, what is important are not historical facts, but the historian who makes use of these facts. To make use of facts, the historian needs imaginative and understanding in order to know and study the minds of the people with whom he is dealing with and thought beyond their facts. Such an understanding is possible only through the eyes of the present, since the historian is the product of his age. Thus, the historian starts with the provisional selection and ordering of facts which belong to the past, understands them imaginatively, and interprets them from the plan of the present, since he is the part of the present. Then, history is the experience of men. Renier mentioned that history story because like a story it is an admixture of theory and of preconceived notions. It is not a mere narrative which is like gold can be used only in the form of an alien. A narrative is turned into a story when it contributes to the performance of a social function. In other words, history must serve a social purpose. The historian must therefore understand the events he narrates to explain their social significance. In other definitions, history is the scientific study of past happenings in all their aspects in the life of social groups, light of present happenings. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru also mentioned history is the story of man's struggle through the ages against nature and the elements, against wild beasts and the jungle. Some of its own kind who have tried to keep him down and to exploit him for their own benefit. The above definition explain history as a significant records of events of the past, a meaningful story of mankind, depicting the details of what happened to man and why it happened. Mainly, it deals with the human world. So these are the reference books you can refer for detailed study of the history, meaning of history, and its definitions. This is the article I use for more reference. So thank you.